Well, thank you, John. It's good to see still the room buzzing. I think we've had a few days of some really exciting presentations from across the university, and there is no session that is better than the other. But this one's pretty good. This is the opportunity for us to really celebrate what this is all about, actually, is our engagement with our community, internal, external, around the fantastic work that the University of Dundee, all of our colleagues deliver on. So this is the point, not just to celebrate, but to reward some individuals who have done really brilliant work. And it's, of course, the Stephen Fry, drumroll, Stephen Fry Engagement Awards. And Stephen is, as many, if not all of you will know, was rector here for 2 terms. And the rector is an incredibly important role in any Scottish university. But in this one, I think it's a particularly important one because the rector stands up for students. The rector is the student's voice. The rector is the individual that ensures that the student voice is really reflected in everything that we do as a university. And that is very close to our heart. It has been since our inception. It continues to be. And Stephen, of course, as well as an inspirational individual, was an inspirational rector. And one of these days, before I finally move on and somebody else fills these in different shoes, is my goal, John, to get Stephen to come back and physically be here. He keeps saying he wants to, and I've just got to go and twist his arm because, as you'll appreciate, nobody wants Stephen Fry in the audience. However, although we don't have him in person, we'll have him in large pictures. He's done a very nice, warm, bespoke video for us. So what we're going to do in this session is Stephen will make his video presentation. He'll announce the winners of the categories for the Stephen Fry Awards, and I'm sure there'll be lots of whooping and cheering around that. And then, unfortunately, you get me, but only for a short time, to present the awards to each of the winners. And then we'll hear from each of the winners on what's so inspired the panel of judges on these awards. And then it's an opportunity to ask questions. And at the end of that, we'll draw proceedings to a close and hopefully a repair outside where there are refreshments that will be served. Which on a Friday afternoon in Duce weather like we've got in Dundee, I would heartily recommend to. So that's what we've got in front of us. Without further ado, let's hear from Stephen.
Well, here we are again, everybody. Another year has passed. Another year has been highlighted by Dundee being named Higher Educational Institution of the Year by the Herald. We've also been ranked the UK's best university for supporting spin-out companies, which is a vital strand of our strategy to encourage innovation and to deliver on our social purpose. Work is also well underway on our new innovation hub to support more new companies. We also established the Binks Sustainability Institute, which will drive much of our work on climate action and net zero, and opened the Centre for Targeted Protein Degradation, our latest area of pioneering life sciences research. And at our winter graduation, we formally installed Lord Robertson as our new Chancellor. Now, on to the details of the winners of the 2024 Stephen Fry Public Engagement Awards, which is now, I find this so hard to believe, it's now in its 12th year. The selection panel bestowed an award in each of 3 categories. The Public Engagement Project of the Year is awarded to a team from the university and our partnering organisations. The Engaged Researcher of the Year and the Engaged Early Career Researcher of the Year categories are awarded to an individual member of staff or student. The university would like to express its sincerest thanks to all members of the award selection panels. We are indebted to the colleagues, partners and community representatives who help to ensure a fair process and reinforce our links with the people of Dundee. Now, In the Engaged Early Career Researcher of the Year category, the university wishes to commend the work of Mashal Amir, Stephanie Puohe, and Nicole Brandon. The winner in this category is Vincenzo Rinaldi. Vincenzo is a virtual reality specialist at the Leverhulme Research Centre for Forensic Science. His research covers new ways of 3D imaging scenes of investigative interest. For example, Vincenzo's work examines how VR, virtual reality, could support the training of crime and fire scene investigators. In the future, this technology could allow a jury to experience crime scenes virtually, and forensic science specialists to direct the collection of evidence without physically being at a crime scene and all those problems of contamination that could result. This is so exciting, isn't it? I'm already picturing a TV series in my head. To understand if VR could be applied in this field, Vincenzo worked closely with forensic experts throughout the lifetime of the project. He collaborated with colleagues in DJZ, along with the Danish Police and Fire Service, crime scene photographers, and the Scottish Police Authority to devise a systematic method for recording fire scenes. Vincenzo's work has contributed to the establishment of a new purpose-built facility for fire investigation run by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, which opened in July 2023. This project was awarded the Innovative Use of Technology Award at the Herald Education Awards last year. These successes were only possible through Vincenzo's dedication to his engagement practice. Now, congratulations, Vincenzo, of course. Now, in the Engaged Researcher of the Year category, the university first wishes to commend the work of Professor Angela Daly. And the 2024 Engaged Researcher of the Year is Suzanne Duce. Suzanne is a research centre manager in the School of Science and Engineering, whose public engagement journey at the university started 14 years ago. In this time, Suzanne has led a wide and eclectic range of science-themed public and schools engagement. Amongst her many successes, Suzanne has organised science photo competitions in the schools and life sciences and medicine, wrote and published an illustrated book, and designed a comic about the university's drug discovery research. Suzanne is motivated by sparking the imaginations of future scientists, and she received this award for her inclusive approach to education. She's worked with teachers and young people to bring DNA and proteins to life in the classroom. As the bioinformatic head of the Royal Society's Daffodil DNA project, she has helped Scottish schools discover new DNA sequences that have been published with teachers and pupils as co-authors. All Suzanne's education and training materials are available online and have been viewed hundreds of thousands of times in over 150 countries, delivering impact across the world. In the Public Engagement Project of the Year category, the university received 9 strong applications. The university would like to commend the work of the teams behind the Disaster Resilient Homes and the Teddy Bear Hospital projects. However, the winner of the Public Engagement Project of the Year is the Exchanges Inspiring Parkinson's Conversations project. The Exchanges project was the Medical Research Council Protein Phosphorylation and Ubiquitination Unit, based in our School of Life Sciences and engagement consultant Sarah Patrick. They worked alongside freelance artist Daksha Patel and people with lived experience of Parkinson's, including 2 carers. The project identified the need to develop a creative resource that inspires deep, meaningful exchanges between Parkinson's researchers and people with lived experience of Parkinson's, with the aim of increasing patient involvement in research. Researchers and people with lived experience of Parkinson's collaborated to co-create Exchanges, an interpretive art card activity with drawings to represent Parkinson's symptoms and research to inspire Parkinson's conversations The resulting cards had immediate impact by generating striking levels of engagement, breaking down barriers and prompting profound conversations about Parkinson's and Parkinson's research. The award panel was very impressed with how the project explored unexpected outcomes, indicating the continually shifting nature of research and public engagement. By listening to and learning from one another, those involved in the project benefited professionally and personally, whilst producing a resource that meets the needs of the global Parkinson's community. Well, those are the awards, ladies and gentlemen. It's given me enormous pride and pleasure to tell you about some of our commended and some of our winning entries. But everybody who engages in this sort of out-facing work, if that's the correct verb, this kind of public-facing research and collaboration is doing something very good, not just for the science, for the academia and academic kudos of Dundee, which seems to grow every day, but also to binding relations between the community in Tayside and Dundee and the great university itself. And it just makes me so proud that my name is attached to work of this incredibly high quality. The day will come, Dundonians all, when I will be with you to announce these, and I really look forward to that happening. Perhaps it'll be next year. This year has been impossible. I'm off to America tomorrow, in fact, and pre-recorded this and wouldn't have been able to be with you. But I send all my love and a happy 2024. Bye-bye.
I just want you to know that if Stephen comes next year, it doesn't mean I'm retiring. So now is, I think, the most exciting part of the show, which is to actually present the trophies. And so we've got these wonderful trophies, which Stephen, so you've got to kind of beam into me being Stephen. We're both kind of bearded and biggish. That's about it, really. I'm maybe a bit more off script than he is. But the first of these is the Stephen Fry Award, 2024 Stephen Fry Award for Engaged Early Career Researcher of the Year. And you know that the incredibly worthy recipient of this is Vincenzo Rinaldi. Please. Good. And then the 2024 Stephen Fry Award for the Engaged Researcher of the Year, and just as brilliant and just as deserving and just as big a whoop is the brilliant Dr. Suzanne Duce. Suzanne! Right. Have we got enough space for this? So the third and final of the awards is the 2024 Stephen Fry Award for the Public Engagement Project of the Year. And of course, the Project of the Year involves quite a lot of people. So we have, well, a number of representatives here for the incredible and inspiring Exchanges Project, inspiring Parkinson's conversations. So guys, come up together and come and get your awards. Fantastic, well done. Well, folks, I'm sure you all think I've had enough of the principal wittering on. So the good news for me is I'm going to stop. And what we're going to do now is really get to the nitty gritty, which is ourselves being inspired by these wonderful projects. And so first up is Vincenzo, and Vincenzo is going to come and tell us all about his VR work, and we don't mean his initials. I couldn't resist it, Vincenzo, sorry. I know it's an original joke, but I've seen this work on crime scene investigation that Vincenzo's been involved in, and it is unbelievably not just realistic, but genuinely inspiring. And I think it's a lot more in a TV series, the practical use by police forces, and also inspiring the creation of a national resource around this is an incredible piece of work. So, Vincenzo, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Principal. Thank you, Stephen Fry. Thank you for being here today. And yeah, today I'm gonna share with you a little bit of the experience in communicating the project that we're carrying out at the Living Room Research Center for Forensic Science, in particular around the use of virtual reality applications for forensic science. Now, I'm Vincenzo Rinaldi. I'm a virtual reality application specialist, which means I'm continuously using this technology and trying to embed these in the workflow of forensic practitioners. So let's talk a little bit about this project. It can be split in two different parts. One is the acquisition at the scene, and as you can imagine, the crime investigator gets at the scene, or someone for them, they have to collect this data, and by using traditional photographs or fancy laser scanners, they can digitalize the scene. This is something that is already happening today. Now, the bit that we're exploring right now is the visualization of it. How can we use an immersive tool to visualize and walk through these scenes? There are many reasons to do this, but this is mainly my project. So whenever I talk to friends, stakeholders, parents, all the people that get in touch with this technology, oftentimes this is what they think. As Professor Coxon has said earlier today, there's this CSI effect. We know it's for sure something when we think about practitioners, about scientists in forensic science. And if you've watched this movie, Iron Man has a 3D reconstruction of a crime scene and just in a couple of minutes can solve the case. Well, this is not always the case, but this is also our problem, our biggest issue, because whenever we are talking to someone about this technology, people still think that this technology can solve it all. We can have a beautiful 3D reconstruction without artifacts. Someone gets the decisions done and the case is cracked. This is probably the critical point where we have to focus on public engagement. We have to explain and give context of what we're doing. So there are two parts of this, two challenges. The first one is doing the research, and many here are people from the university and know how many challenges we have in doing the research. You have to build the tools, have the methods, find the methods, doing the experiments. But this is also important. Equally important is communication with a variety of people. I say variety because I'm a software engineer. I have to talk with people from forensics, people from the law community, people from the public, and who we're talking to and what we're saying goes together. I had to learn how to talk to forensic practitioners and experts. They want to know the technicalities, even though oftentimes they are not computer scientists, but they need to know what's under the hood, how the technology works in order to be able to use it, but also explain their findings in the courtroom. So, for example, one of the earliest works that we had in public engagement was a series of workshops. In particular, this one is in Stockholm at EF's conference, where we introduced this technology to our working group of forensic practitioners. We're also using these by doing training with them, but this is a training for them to learn how to properly use this technology, but also for us to see how well or badly received this technology is. Once the investigation goes on, these type of data might actually be used in the courtroom. So we definitely need to talk with other type of people with different backgrounds. In this case, we are tackling these by talking to the people of the courtroom. The Living Room Research Center for Forensic Science has a concept, a project, which is a conversation with different people with different backgrounds. It usually takes the name of strategic conversation, and it lasts for 2 days, where we come together in a room people, again, with different backgrounds and just brainstorm. And we try to talk to each other. What are your expectations? What can technology and research can deliver? And last year, I joined the strategic conversation about the future of the courtroom here at the University of Dundee. But equally important is our conferences, meeting with people that are actually looking at the research where it is heading. Now, again, people here are probably mostly from the university, so they are used to go to conferences. But we know that usually we go as academics in our conferences. I had to go to investigators, chemists, conferences of people of the courtroom. That's not my setting. I had, again, to learn and explain what we're doing here to see whether or not this is usable for them and it fits for purpose. In this case, I had the pleasure to join the Royal Society at the Science in the Interest of Justice conference last September, but equally at the Royal Society, we had the pleasure to meet the public. So we're not talking about to experts, we are not talking to specialized stakeholders. We're talking to the public because we have seen what technology can do when it's delivered directly to the people. And we've seen this, for example, with generative AI. You're given ChatGPT, you start using it, but what's under the hood or what's the purpose of this technology, people need to know it to be able to use it. So I had the pleasure to join the LATES event, which is a public engagement activity at the Royal Society, but we also start conversations with the public here, not only in London, but also here in Dundee, with drop-in activities, for example, with the Festival for Future. Now, something that I've learned from the group of people that are focusing on public engagement at the Living Room Research Center for Forensic Science is measuring the impact, because we also need not only to do the research and do it well, but also understand how well it is perceived and benchmark what we're doing. So social media might help us understanding how the people that we are talking to receive these messages and whether or not they fully understand the development of these research. Another way comes again from the internet, seeing how it is perceived by the public, for example, with the news. Another way that we tried to leverage last year was throughout the use of, for example, podcasts. There are 2 podcasts right now, one from the Living Room Research Center for Forensic Science and another episode about the use of this technology, potential use of this technology in the courtroom. And we're always trying to get report and understand, again, whether or not these people are understanding what we're saying, whether or not we are creating too high expectations that cannot be met by the research. We're also trying to understand whether or not we are going outside of our bubble, because it's not useful for the research and not for the people that the research is meant to have a technology that doesn't interface the 2 worlds. And I'd like to think that this project also contributed to the series of awards that the university got this year. So this is another way of measuring the impact. Now, talking to the public is a 2-way communication. It's something that we have to do, again, to deliver the continuous development and updates about the research, but also something that, again, sets the priorities for our research. I'm a software engineer. I don't have the right to say to the forensic practitioners what it will be useful to them. They have to tell us whether or not this is feasible and if it's for purpose. And we always try to focus on the risk of this technology, trying to be as honest as possible, especially because this technology holds a huge wow factor, is highly impactful. So people, again, need to understand it before using it. Now, there are a series of activities or materials that have been produced in the last couple of years. I had the pleasure to participate in a citizen science project with a PhD of ours, where I helped in the creation of the data set for identification through knuckles. This is something great for every researcher getting involved in these projects, because again, you're getting involved in different projects, but also involving the public directly. One thing that we did at the LRCFS is actually the creation of materials, because sometimes we don't have the time to meet with all the people that we like to talk to. So even just creating these postcards and leaving it at the office gives us the opportunity to just spread the word of what we're doing there. And one, I'd say, rather inspiring thing that happened in the last couple of years was actually talking to kids. I have the luck as a researcher in virtual reality to use tools that they know for other reasons. For example, video games. The headset that I'm using right now is mostly known for video games. And it was extremely useful to have this interface with kids and explain them how they can use things that they have at home and they can use every day, can be useful for other purposes, but also explain how a study in STEM might be useful for them. And this would have never been possible without the integration and collaboration with other stakeholders, all the conferences that helped us and believed in us, the Danish police, the Scottish police. In particular, I would like to thank the director of the Leverum Research Center for Forensic Science, our coordinator from the public engagement, and our brilliant PhD student that worked on the acquisition method. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Vincenzo, and really inspiring work. And if you can get a chance to, at some point in time, when the TV series comes out, right, to immerse yourself in this, then please do. Right, from one inspirational piece to another inspirational piece, not just an inspirational piece, but Suzanne's work Suzanne has been at the forefront of engagement around science, around understanding DNA, or interacting in various ways through education here in the university, and really importantly with skills in the community for, well, I'm not going to mention the number, Suzanne, but for quite some time. So as well as the really outstanding work and really outstanding impact, I mean, school kids publishing, not shabby, not shabby, probably doing things that I can't do any longer as a ex-failed microbiologist. But it's that consistency over many years, really making a difference, and particularly taking science to the young and inspiring them to become leaders of tomorrow, which we all need for our future. So Suzanne, please, looking forward very much to hearing from you.
Hello. I'd like to start just by saying what an honour it is to receive this award, and also to thank my friends who have come along today to support me. So my involvement in public engagement in science started before it was called public engagement, because back in the 80s, I did a PhD at the University of Cambridge, and I was working trying to understand the origins of image contrast in MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. And in those days, the technique was so new, we had to build our own spectrometer. So one day, my boss, Laurie Hall, comes into the lab and says to me he would like to ask a favour of me. Would I acquire an MRI image of a mince pie for a journalist friend of his? So before I know it, my photo is on the front page of the Christmas Eve edition of the Daily Telegraph, with an article about our research on page 14. Well, as you can imagine, this opened a floodgate, which in turn led to our images going on display in the Science Museum in London. But today, I want to talk about a more recent adventure I've had into biology, big data, and bioinformatics. And I would also like to address the question why I think public engagement is in science is so important. So this project for me started when I joined the JALView team in the School of Life Sciences, headed by Jeff Barton and Jim Proctor. These are the guys who write the code and develop the software. This is our office, and my desk was behind that binary code screen. So JALView is one of the most widely used programs for visualizing and analyzing DNA, RNA, and protein sequences. And it will run in a web browser, which is handy for outreach work because it means we don't have to download any software onto a computer. So whilst JALView is principally used in research, because it's relatively easy to use, I had the idea of developing some web-based bioinformatic practicals that would support higher and advanced higher biology. So I created the JALView Scores Workbook, which contains 8 bioinformatic exercises that allow pupils to view and interact with these biological molecules for themselves. So the exercises are laid out in 2 columns. The first column contains text, which explains each step, and the second column contains screenshots that illustrate these steps. We also have learning outcomes and questions to help reinforce the principles that are being demonstrated. So all these resources are available at the JALView website at www.jalview.org by clicking on the Schools tab. So all the resources are on this single web page. And we also have a video that explains why biologists need bioinformatic tools like JALView. So how to access the Scores Workbook. Simply go to the workbook link and click on the link, and that will open in an adjacent browser the Scores Workbook, which can be viewed or downloaded as required. So all the exercises are really simple to run. So for example, if you want to view a fragment of DNA, you go to exercise 1 and click the link View Fragment of DNA, as I will demonstrate here. So this not only opens JALView in an adjacent web browser, but it also reads in the sequence and the 3D structure. The 3D viewer is interactive, so the molecule can be rotated, zoomed in and out, and the 2 windows are linked. So by colouring the nucleotide bases in the sequence, it also colours it in the 3D structure. And as the pupils work through the exercises, they can learn about different properties of DNA. The second exercise opens JALView in what we call the split screen frame. Here, the DNA is in the top window, but in this case, we have read in an entire gene. In this example, it's the gene for myoglobin. And in the bottom window is the protein that the gene codes for. Again, these windows are linked. So by placing your mouse on the amino acid in the protein, you can see highlighted in black the 3 nucleotides that make up the codon that codes for that amino acid. So by running this experiment, pupils can start to understand the relationship between DNA, codons, and protein synthesis. So all the activities are linked to the curriculum. For example, we have an activity that reads a gene called the HBB gene, which a single mutation in this gene alters the proteins that are in hemoglobin, which in turn is responsible for sickle cell anemia. So the pupils at Forfa Academy helped test run these activities. Sorry, my phone's going off. These activities, and I used their feedback in the design. I know, having talked to teachers, how much they appreciate having practical exercises to help them teach molecular biology. So these exercises have been downloaded over 10,000 times from over 100 countries. Mexico and the Philippines were early adopters, and they used the activities a lot. Post-COVID, I've been able to visit schools and run schools workshops and also host teacher training sessions. In addition, I've prepared a variety of public engagement activities that I take to events such as science festivals. So my recent one studies hemoglobin from woolly mammoths. Now, woolly mammoths and hemoglobin are both popular topics in science festivals, but the reason I designed this exercise was to highlight the fact that there are scientists who are actively sequencing the genome of extinct animals with the sole intention of bringing them back to life. I have found these activities really good conversation starters, and I think it's important that we have public debates on ethical issues such as this. Another reason I think public engagement is important is because post-COVID, we're all very aware of the power of fake news. So I try and produce resources that foster discussion. For example, I've produced a COVID activity that's been viewed many thousands of times. And over lockdown, as part of Bang Goes the Borders Science Festival, I organised a online event where scientists here at the university spoke about their COVID-related research. But the principal reason I do public engagement and I prepare these, make these resources and attend science festivals is the hope that they would inspire youngsters to be interested in science. Also, I would hope they would like to start them thinking about career opportunities, because we have a serious shortage of bioinformaticians, and these are often very interesting and well-paid jobs. Looking further afield, I also want to help pupils and students in low and middle income countries. And for this reason, I make all these resources accessible regardless of borders, time zones or language. Our JALView YouTube education and training videos have been viewed nearly 200,000 times from 140 countries. And when I last looked at the metrics, 25% of these were from LMIC countries. Another motivation is that here in Dundee, we have some really exciting and groundbreaking research. And I think it's really important that we highlight this. I have links with the Dundee Drug Discovery Unit in the School of Life Sciences. And when they published their molecule that's currently in clinical trials to treat malaria, I produced this comic to help them explain the drug discovery process. I also contributed to this representation of the molecule that has been displayed in several art and design exhibitions. A few years later, when they discovered a preclinical candidate for a disease called leishmaniasis, I created, along with two friends, a children's illustrated book and produced a video to help explain this discovery. And I'd like to give a shout out to Daisy McGowan, who produced these just incredible illustrations. I also produced this image, which is of the compound in its binding site that was used on the front cover of the journal that published this result. To my mind, images and photographs have a special role to play in public engagement because they're a visual medium. And one of the problems we have in science is it can often get bogged down with complex concepts and buzzwords. So for this reason, I have organised several photographic competitions where researchers submit their science-themed images and photographs. And these are the winning entries from a 2019 competition. And Julia's image was actually taken up by the National Museum Scotland in Edinburgh to publicise their parasite exhibition. This year, I've gone one step further by adopting virtual reality. So in September, I took my virtual reality headset to a science festival, which proved very popular. What are these children looking at? Well, they're looking at giant 3D models of chemical molecules that I generated and published in Sketchfab. To close, I want to tell you about my contribution to a fabulous project run by John Hale, who is a teacher in Jersey and also studying to do a PhD here at the university. So with funding from the Royal Society, the Daffodil DNA project aims to take state-of-the-art genomic technology into the classrooms. So through the school year, the schools grow their daffodils that are allocated to them by the Botanic Gardens here at the university. They then extract the chloroplast DNA from the leaves of the daffodil, and then using this little piece of equipment called the Oxford Nanopore Minions, they're able to sequence the DNA and then assemble the genome on their school computers. So this is the bioinformatics team in the School of Life Sciences that support the schools. We provide training for teachers and pupils. We've created websites to house the various resources and also the results. We produce several how-to videos and a booklet. James Abbott then takes the school's data and reanalyzes it with the university's supercomputers using research standard workflows. So this is novel cutting-edge research, and several of the schools have produced new sequences of daffodil chloroplast DNA, which we've published with the school's pupils and teachers as co-authors. So to end, as public engagement by definition is a shared activity, I would like to thank the many people that I've had the pleasure of working alongside when I've organised and participated in various public engagement events. And I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Wow, Suzanne, that's quite a body of work and quite collaboration across the university for such a long time. And I think that the Java workbooks are really cool. Really cool. How you can't be inspired by that, I don't know. So thank you for all that you shared with us. And I know you've got collaborators. I see in Gilbert there in the room. So there'll be many collaborators here. Looking forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you. Right, now, what are we going to do? A presentation with 1.5 minutes each? No, I think so we're going to turn to Parkinson's. We're going to turn to the Exchanges project now. Again, incredibly inspiring, far-reaching project working across a whole range of different disciplines and different partners, as you can see from colleagues that are in the room. Around disease, which of course has incredible impacts on individuals' lives, and it's also challenging to comprehend and understand some of the opportunities around research. As I'm sure you will know, the MRC PPU and colleagues in the university are absolutely cutting edge, world cutting edge of addressing Parkinson's disease, including with support from, for example, the Michael J. Fox Foundation. So it's a huge pleasure to hear about the Exchanges project, and I think, Sarah, you're going to be the spokesperson for the team. So over to you. Let's hear about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I just want to start by saying thanks to the Principal, to Stephen Fry, and also the judging panel for the award. We're absolutely delighted as a team to be recognised with this award, so thank you. I'm going to give a brief overview of the project today and a little bit about the impact and plans for the future. And then I'm going to hand over to a video that we've got for the project. It really, hopefully, will give a voice to others that have been involved in the project, both some of our researchers and people with lived experience. So as you heard earlier, Exchanges is an interpretive art card activity. I've got some packs of these for afterwards, so if you're outside, feel free to come and grab one. And they've been produced to help us have better conversations about Parkinson's. They include art drawings of some of the research in the PPU and also some of the symptoms of Parkinson's too. So normally we'd finish with acknowledgements, but this is a team award and there's been a huge team effort in getting us to this point. So I want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's been involved and well done. In the MRC PPU, I've worked really closely with Myrtle as the clinical and science lead on the project, but there've been a number of researchers, as you've seen from today, accepting the award involved in the project, and also the professional services team within the unit too. We've worked with external artist Daksha Patel and an external videographer who's here, Steve, today too, and had some input at the beginning of the project from Tom, who's here from the law school. So thank you, Tom. But I really want to say the biggest thank you today to the people with lived experience of Parkinson's that got involved in the project. So we had 9 people involved, 7 people that are living with Parkinson's and 2 carers, one who's here today, Joy, thank you. So how did we decide there was a need for this project? So Parkinson's is the fastest growing neurological disorder in the world. At the moment, there's no cure and there's not even a diagnostic test. And as you heard from the principal, it's a huge focus of the work within the PPU. The unit is really values patient engagement, patient involvement in the research. So from a previous public engagement project, we realised that there was a real need for a creative tool to help our researchers have better, deeper, more meaningful conversations with people with Parkinson's. So I thought it'd be useful to give you a little bit of an overview of kind of the timeline and what we did in the project. So we actually started discussions around the project at the end of 2021. And in 2022, at the beginning of 2022, we came together in sessions. And I think the real success of this project is that it's been co-produced from the very beginning. So we've had all perspectives from the Parkinson's community involved from the very beginning. So our researchers, myself, the artist, and people with lived experience of Parkinson's. We got together for 9 co-production sessions face-to-face at the Botanic Gardens, and we had some really great conversations. So things like, how do we make sure that in the art drawings, your perspective of Parkinson's is represented? So whether that's your Parkinson's research, your lived experience of Parkinson's, and in some cases, both. We had conversations like, with the art drawings, do we want them in colour or do we want them in black and white? And you'll see from the images and from the video today that we decided on black and white because it allows more personal interpretation, because what you see in a card and what I see in a card could be completely different, and that's how they're used. So, and the other thing we tested was a list of questions to use alongside them. So we have a card with questions in the box, like, what does Parkinson's mean to you? What's your hopes for the future? And really to help inspire and prompt deeper conversations. So once we'd created this resource together, we then went into production. So you'll see the box of cards in the middle. So that was in summer 2022. We spent a long time thinking about the colour of the box, the size, the thickness of cards, size of cards, to make sure that it's as accessible as possible. And then further, in terms of accessibility, you'll see Google Translate there. From the QR code you'll see on the box, we have a linked out web page that allows the instruction cards and the question cards to be translated into any language. From there, you'll see on the top of the slide, Joy, who's here today, with our videographer and one of our researchers. We then went into filming sessions. So once we produced the card packs, we thought, let's do a final testing and do some filming to kind of capture some of those conversations. So at the beginning of last year, we then pulled together a video using some of that footage, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. From there, we produced a poster because we decided, and I'll come on to it a little bit more, to take it to the World Parkinson's Congress in Barcelona in July last year. So we produced a poster, and our project abstract was published in the Journal of Parkinson's Disease. So the impact of the cards. The impact, it was clear to see immediately. I felt really privileged to be sat in on the conversations of people using the cards. They broke down barriers immediately. It removed any kind of sense of hierarchy between people, and really was quite striking. Some people said that they were sharing things that they'd never even shared with friends and family before. And what was really exciting is actually even beyond that impact is we found some really unexpected impacts. So we found that the cards during testing were actually really useful between people with lived experience of Parkinson's without any of our researchers present, which was really exciting. And also because some people had come along to the sessions, to the testing sessions with either their carers, friends or family, is we said, no, you come and sit in with us and get involved. So we actually found out that the cards were really useful in prompting deep, meaningful conversations in groups as well as the pairs like we'd originally planned. So participants were advocating use within support groups, conferences, in clinical settings. It was really exciting. So as a result of seeing all this impact and the excitement around the cards, we decided to apply to present at the World Parkinson's Congress in Barcelona last summer. So you can see Dan, who's here with us today. Dan and I travelled over to Barcelona to present a poster there. And we were blown away by the reception. We were excited about it, but we were blown away. We had, at some points, people queuing up to speak to us, to get packs of our cards, to see our video that we took with us, and chat to us about the project. So we had, we'd packed about 200 packs in our cases, as much as we could get in our suitcases, and they were all gone. People were really excited to take them. So that was support group leaders, clinicians, nurses, therapists, people with lived experience, charity, people that were considering partnering with us from charities, and industry colleagues from all over the world too. So just to finish, from there and thinking about kind of the future is at the Congress, I met up with Gary, who is chair of Parkinson's UK. You can see him in the middle there. He is an inspirational man in himself. And we sat down at a big round table at the front of the conference in the reception area. And I got a pack of the cards out to chat to him about them. And it was amazing because there was other people at the big round table that we weren't chatting to, that weren't with us, I didn't know them. And they seen the images on the cards and came over and started chatting. And Gary then could see the impact of these cards without us even using it with instructions and things like that, is it got people chatting immediately. So he could see the impact these cards can have. And from there, I actually got a tweet from James Joplin, who is Scotland Director for Parkinson's UK, the same day while I was still at the conference, to say, when you're back in the UK, can we get together and talk about the project? So it's really exciting that we're now in discussions with Parkinson's UK and lots of different teams within the charity to really look at how do we share these cards. They're having much more impact than we had even ever imagined. So how do we make sure that we're targeting our resource in the right place and sharing them with the right groups? So whether that's support groups, people that are newly diagnosed with Parkinson's, or nurse training, for example. And we've had some inquiries recently, both at the conference and here recently, is to share the packs of cards globally. So there's charities, global charities and organisations in discussions with us at the moment to think about how we can share them globally. And what's really interesting is from the Congress and from conversations locally, both with researchers in the uni and wider, is that people can really see the value of these, using these type cards in different conditions. So we've had inquiries within university. Actually, I just spoke to someone recently working in dementia, and spoke to someone out with the university recently working in HIV, and can really see this model being applied to different conditions. So I know that's been a huge whiz through the project, but I really wanted to leave you with the video that we've created within the project, because it really gives voice to all of the amazing people that have been involved in the project. So I'm going to hand over to the video and look forward to taking any questions that you have within the question and answer session too.
To meet you, a researcher into Parkinson's, is wonderful, because I know how much work is being done to try and help people like myself to cure it and perhaps prevent it getting worse as well. So I'd like to thank you for that.
To me, this sort of interaction is very important to me as well, to be able to sort of keep me focused on what's important, what we're really trying to do here. And the fact that I've been able to, in my own research as well, work a lot more with patients, I think that's very important. So I would like to keep that going.
It's such a personal illness that you want answers from consultants and they really can't give you them.
Yeah.
And that can be frustrating. And for me it's time. If I could ask somebody today, how much time do I have left to do all the things I still want to do.
Yeah.
It's selfish in one sense, but it would be nice to have clarity, because nobody knows how long they've got.
I want to stay as independent as I can for as long as I can. And I suddenly realise how fragile that independence is.
When my children all had chicken pox, they all had the same spots, they all looked the same, and you know how it's going to work and when they get better. And I think that's what makes it really frightening for patients, people with Parkinson's, because you don't know what's going to happen to you. That's the thing that really, really worries me and bothers me. And if it's going to be a long, slow process, and yeah, it's, don't want to go on for years, you know, sort of slowly getting worse and worse.
Understanding helps cope.
Yes, understanding helps. It does. There's no two ways about it. And the reading led to the realisation that a doctor would speak to, you know, the person who had Parkinson's, but would they really speak to us? Would they say, you know, how are you doing and what's happening and have you seen changes? Now that was one of the things that I very early on realised they didn't ask a carer. What changes have you seen? And that, to me, was a big faux pas.
I think it can get very stressful in the lab sometimes, so just making sure that I have, you know, a good life outside the lab as well as definitely helps me relax.
I didn't realise until I really started into the science side of it how stressful it is inside a lab. It has opened my eyes tremendously to research. I mean, designing grants, getting the funding, carrying them out, the PPI, getting people involved.
To get that information took us 8 years.
Yeah.
Pretty much 8 years. It took 3 different people working for their entire time on this one problem. Until we got to this point after 8 years, we were able to then say we'd actually achieved something, whereas in the clinic, you feel that when you go and see people that you can help them on a more immediate basis. So even the kind of how you can motivate yourself to keep going after many years is, I think that's something that one of the strengths of Dundee is that we actually encourage long-term questions, even if they're hard. The environment here is very supportive for going after things that are hard.
You know, the research that you're involved in is just one part of a vast jigsaw of research that's going on.
It is a hope, a prayer, whatever it is, that I drive things forward so that people are diagnosed earlier, so that the early signs and symptoms can be taken, and well, if that's happening to you, can we look at this? Can we do this research? Or if that happens to you, we'll do this.
To me, Parkinson's is it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all problem. I don't think, you know, each patient is different. They're going to have different needs. So I think making sure more towards the buzzword of personalised medicine, you know, trying to make sure that each patient has a tailored plan that suits them. I think that's, just generally improving the way we look at it and treat it.
My aspirations for the future are to cope better with the Parkinson's, not to let it get the better of me, and to not be frightened to say yes if people ask you to do something and to go somewhere. And your initial reaction is to go, no, I can't possibly do that. Is to say, yes, that would be fine, and give it a go.
You see things in life that you won't see.
Yeah. There are definitely more than one way to reach out. You just need to keep trying.
That's true.
Keep continue.
That's true.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this sort of having these cards as prompts is helping sort of open up the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably explore areas of conversation that you may not do otherwise. So they're doing their job. They're making you think about yourself and your Parkinson's, and I mean, obviously you're coming at it from a different angle. Mm-hmm. But I think they're good starting points.
So you're just like me, So it's good to see the
like my problems, you've got the same problems, because that's a couple of cars with the same. And
yeah, we always think that we are the only one who is experiencing this, but
we're not,
not alone.
And I do think that in a way, you know, everybody is kind of somehow connected to each other, and we all need each other in terms of just living your best life.
I think it could be helpful also to just have a debate about what's really affecting people, and should we just focus on getting some treatments just to help with that symptom or this symptom.
So the hope I get every day in my everyday life, in the research I do, inspires me at every step, at every moment of my life.
Well, do you know something? You inspire me, you really do.
Oh, I really feel good to know that.
That's engagement, that's exchanges, that's having conversations, talking about difficult things, but also, as we've heard, creating inspiration, creating hope, and creating a future through these conversations. So, to continue the theme of conversations and engagement, it's your opportunity as an audience now in the final session of our Discovery Days to engage with these great engagement leaders. So, Vincenzo, Suzanne, and I guess Sarah, come and join us down the front, and let's see if we've got some questions from the audience in the room and or online. Oh, okay, right. Questions in the room. Yeah, so we've got microphones, so it's one here, please. Do stick your hand up so I can load them.
Thank you. Thank you for some inspiring presentations. It was really good to see all your projects and all the work that you've done. My question is for the whole panel. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on the role of creativity in your engagement activities.
Fantastic, great question. Creativity, who wants to kick off?
Please go first if you like. So creativity is a really interesting one for us, because the original inspiration where the need was identified for our project Exchanges was in a previous project that Myrtle was had with the artist Aksha Patel, and within that there was a workshop where, I don't know if Myrtle was particularly happy about this at the time, but he was taken along to a workshop to do some drawing and some artworks alongside people with lived experience of Parkinson's. And it was from that they saw that really that broke down barriers. It took everyone outside of their comfort zone and allowed more natural conversations to happen. So I think, I don't know if Myrtle wants to add any more to that, but creativity has been fundamental to our project and that continued relationship that Myrtle had with the external artist. Myrtle, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Well, maybe we want to Suzanne.
Yeah, I think creativity is essential. I think there's different types of creativity, you know, creativity in science, creativity in art. And I think one thing I've really valued from is collaborations with people from different disciplines, because they bring a different kind of creativity.
Vincenzo?
I agree about the fact that creativity is different. You need creativity to write code, but also, for example, in this project, we have our PhD student that doesn't have a forensic science background, comes from DJKID actually, and is an expert in using technologies like, for example, photography that had to be applied in this field to create this. So yeah, definitely needed.
Cool.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll just add to what Sarah said, that I think that creativity is a very powerful medium. I mean, I think we are in a university which prides itself on innovation and working on challenging problems. And I think we've discovered that it's not just the research side of things that rely on creativity. I think even patients themselves are on a journey, and for them, they're mapping out their own challenges and in some ways bringing in, for example, art and other things. You know, it can inspire both sides.
It's real interdisciplinarity across everything that we do in net engagement, and it's come across in well, all the projects that we've heard about today, but in general, our engagement, and just seeing the size of the team here. And if we're not creative in that engagement, then we're not really engaging. Other questions? Oh, Grim.
Thanks very much. There's a question for Sarah and Vincenzo, I think. I just wondered if you'd thought about sharing some of the technology that Vincenzo is doing. Sarah, I recently had I have MS, and I recently had an experience where I used VR and actually was able to do things that I hadn't been able to do for years. And actually the idea of having conversations around that, these sorts of experiences that you haven't had for a long time to re-enable you to do things, is incredibly powerful, actually. It's just a thought.
Sarah, do you want to kick off?
So sorry, so the question is around using virtual reality within our project, were you thinking? Yeah, so that's a really interesting thought. We've not had conversations yet about virtual reality, but we have started some conversations with Parkinson's UK around trying to make the card pack accessible online. Obviously, a lot of meetings, events these days, particularly post-COVID, are taking place online. So we're actually in discussions. Matt, who's our technical expert, here he is, within the unit, and I have got to catch up soon about that, and I'm catching up with Parkinson's UK later in the month, because they're really keen to see if it's something that we could make work online. I'm particularly interested to see that as well, because obviously the real benefit of the cards is that human connection. So it'll be really interesting to see if that human connection is possible in an online format as well. So virtual reality, maybe Vincenzo and I have to have a cup of tea at some point. It would be, yeah, really interesting to see what's possible in future in that sense as well. Thank you.
And what do you think, Matt, about that kind of idea of using VR to experience things that maybe, as Graham said, you haven't been able to for a long time? Is that something that appeals in your kind of projects and interaction with Parkinson's sufferers?
I'm an advocate for Parkinson's, and
yeah, it's on
quite a bit with exercise. Now, there are huge difficulties with freezing, etc., and difficulties in exercising for people, both psychologically and in the movement disorder. Now, virtual reality showing that I have been in the World Ping Pong Championships, and you see somebody walking into that room, they can hardly move. They're freezing. They can hardly get the bat going. They've played 2 games and they are moving. Now, if you could do that for Parkinson's with exercise, I'm a great exponent all over the world of exercise. That would be tremendous with the card. It would be absolutely tremendous.
All right, so there's a possibility here, Vincenzo.
So VR is just one of the technologies, and it has to be an enabler. So we are trying to use commercially available technology so virtually everyone can use it. We're also honest about what we're using, the software, the hardware, so everyone can replicate what we're doing, and if they want to, they can do it, let's say, at home. This is probably one of our fundamentals, for doing this. Another bit is that probably VR has been already used and is demonstrating continuously to open new doors in terms of accessibility. So yeah, definitely taking everyone to the scene whenever it's required is definitely something for the crime scene investigation. It's something that's becoming a reality, real reality.
Okay, well, you've got some people thinking here in the front row, Graham, I can see that. So yes, please. Well, maybe get a mic, because otherwise online can't hear you.
Thank you very much. So my question is for Vincenzo and Suzanne. I know you have used virtual reality in your work, and I am a lecturer and I use virtual reality in my class because I actually have the headset. So I brought the headset to my class and let the students experience it in my class. But some of my students have motion sickness. So some students couldn't experience it and they told me, although they're very interested, but they feel sick after they put them on. So I want to ask you, have you encountered any difficulties as such in your work and how have you dealt with it? Thank you.
That sounds like a Vincenzo question.
We had a fair amount of users until now, and probably the number of people that experience this kind of sickness is around 1%, but still it's 1% of the people that are said you can use this technology. So again, virtual reality is just one of the ways of accessing and visualizing this type of data. We are definitely looking at some other ways. We have to acknowledge that research in terms of development of these devices is also improving. Before, for example, discovering some technicalities, I'm not saying those now, people that experience motion sickness were many more. So right now, we're just hopefully that the producers and people that are developing these systems are just going to enable everyone to enjoy this technology.
So potential solutions, Suzanne.
Two comments really. The headsets are quite heavy, and in many respects, I think augmented reality in looking at molecules would be more useful. So you see the 3D molecule in your real world. It also eliminates certain problems of walking into tables and things. But the trouble is with the headset being so heavy, we really need maybe glasses or something a little lighter and easier to use. So for use in viewing molecules, I think it's just the beginning of a journey.
No, sorry, you need the microphone. Otherwise, people can't hear you.
Thank you. That's a very good point. I do want to have the AR glass, but they're super expensive at the moment. Exactly. So I couldn't afford to bring them to the class. Yeah. So I can only afford VR glasses and the student can experience VR, but we do have difficulties. Some students have difficulties with that. And what I did is that I let the students share their experience on the screen so everybody else can see what their actual experiences using the VR glass. But there are loads of restrictions, as you say, like you can only do it in a certain space because you need to restrict a safety area, otherwise they are going to bounce into tables and chairs, and sometimes there are sockets on the floor you can trip over. So it is
no. Health and safety, quick. Turn the alarms.
Exactly. So yeah, I think augmented is definitely a bit better in this place because you see things augmented to reality, so you can actually see everything in the room without actually bouncing into them. So yeah, in the future, if I do have or funding or certain things that can support me to have such facilities and to let my students experience that, they'll be much better. Yeah, thank you.
Great, sounds like a grant application. Maurice,
this question is for everyone or for anyone. How do you link original research to your engagement activities? So you have the research. So how do you link the original research to strong engagement activity? And all of you, of course, have done very strong engagement. So how would the two be connected, linked?
Maurice is looking for an impact case study here.
I was the comment. I think you had to have a good story, a good narrative to link the research. Otherwise, it's abstract. And I think you have to see the application, the journey as the application of the research. It can be quite abstract, and to be able to ground it on something that's relevant to the person you're interacting is important.
I think I would say for our project, and I'm looking at our researchers, anyone that wants to input, is the cards allow a connection between the people first and then the research comes afterwards. So it's that human connection is then the link into the discussions around the science, I think. And you heard on the video one of our researchers saying, and one of the people affected by Parkinson's saying, oh, we've had a couple of chats similar there. And I can't remember what they were talking about, but it was about life goals or fears in life, things like that. So there was a connection there on the human level, a bit, because no matter what field we're in or where we come from, is we all have hopes for the future, we all have fears for the future, we all have things that we're scared to ask. So the connection really was on a human level first, and then the science afterwards. I'm looking at any of our researchers in case anyone wants to input any more to that.
For me, is almost easy because we're talking about mainly of virtual reality. So the benefit, but also the downside of using this technology, it is there is a huge wow factor. So when people see this, they think, wow, this is going to be impactful. But it's weird to be at the same time someone who wants to promote this technology and this research, but still being the gatekeeper, also being the person that curbs their enthusiasm, saying, this is not meant for some purposes. We still need to work to fully understand how, for example, the bias of the person in the virtual world acts and stuff like this. So again, it's probably the work in progress is helping here as understanding which are the benefits and the downsides of this.
Okay, time for one last question. Who's up for it? Right at the back.
Hi. So of the many questions I'd love to ask, what advice would you give to anybody here or online who were thinking, or not even thinking, but potentially could be a future winner of the Stephen Fry Awards?
Oh, what a great question for the final question. So
can I go first as a public engagement professional?
Absolutely.
I'm looking around and see if you speak to your public engagement professional, whoever is in your institute and your unit, and I really mean that because we're in these roles because we're passionate about it. So I would say that was definitely your first protocol, is sit down and have conversation. Don't even think you have to have a project idea in mind, a plan in place. Myrtle and I started conversations about, I think we started a conversation about an animation, and then the conversations developed from there. So I think it's open up those lines of conversation with your public engagement professionals.
I'd say probably don't wait for occasions like this, and probably just sit down and feedback yourself with all the things that you've done throughout the year. Because, for example, when I was suggested to come here, I didn't even think about it. I didn't know what I did until a couple of months ago was valuable. And then I had people from our group saying, look at what you've done, and you engage with so many different people. And this is something that sometimes when you are just doing the research, I'd say, you don't really notice, but it's also good to guide and set your priorities in your research. Yeah.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I guess you don't do it for the prizes, you do it because you want to meet the public. So my advice would be to join, whether been involved in Doors Open Days at the medical school and at Nine Wells, and if one of those events are on, just come along and have a go. Is the best place to start for? It's where I started.
Excellent. And you guys have been having a go for quite a long time in quite significant ways. So, well, folks, it's Friday afternoon. I'd like to say the weather's improved and all is sunny and balmy outside. As Bill and I continue to say, we're the sunniest city in Scotland, but it is Scotland we're talking about, and it is January. I'm sure you'll agree with me that we've had a huge amount of warmth and sunshine in this room and around over the last few days with Discovery Days. It's incredibly important for us as a university, for us as a community to engage in the way that we've been talking about here, but also with everyone in the room, with everyone online, and to do that not just in Discovery Days, but throughout the year. Our colleagues here at the University of Dundee absolutely want to make a difference. We talk about transforming lives, we talk about our focus on social purpose, and that is, as a community, what gets us up in the morning and motivates us and drives us. And as you heard from the great work in Parkinson's, 8 years to get to a protein structure and feel that there's impact. This is a long-term game, and having that long-term focus on difficult questions, that's what a great university is for. And I hope you think that you are part of a community of a great university. I certainly do. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for engaging with our new professors, our inspiring young researchers, fantastic students, researchers, teachers, those involved in engagements. It's your university, continue to be involved in it. And please join me in thanking all the speakers, John, Shabnam, Esther, our wonderful student ambassadors, for such a great event once again. And remember, drinks are downstairs. Thank you all very much.